really matters? That might be the most important question you can ask. So let's talk about it. Welcome to What Really Matters podcast, Everyday Spirituality with Karen Wyatt. Thanks for joining me here today for another episode. I really appreciate your support and your interest in some of the things I have to say here. Today, I want to talk about why and how to be compassionate toward others. And in the past, I did a podcast episode for End of Life University on why we are failing at compassion. And I believe that compassion is one of the most important things we can develop within ourselves. And so I wanted to give a little pep talk on why it's good for us to learn how to be compassionate toward other people. So that's what we'll dive into today. And I want to tell you about a book I've been reading lately, and this material and the inspiration for it came from reading this book called Compassionomics, the revolutionary scientific evidence that caring makes a difference. It's by Stephen Trzeciak and Anthony Mazzarelli, both of whom are medical researchers. They're doctors who do research. The foreword is written by Senator Cory Booker, and it's a really inspiring book. The authors have gone back through decades worth of studies that have been done on caring and compassion in health-related settings, and their findings were really astounding at just how profound the benefits of compassion are for healing other people. But they also discovered that when we are compassionate, it benefits us as well. And that's what I want to talk about. I kind of want to start there because once you understand that being compassionate to other people is one of the best things you can do for your own health, then that inspires all of us to work on this ability of ours, our skills, I should say, at being compassionate to other people. So today, just to give you a little outline, I'm going to talk about what is compassion according to this book and how they define it, how our compassion can heal others, why there's always enough time for compassion, compassionate behaviors, the benefits of being compassionate for the giver, and then how to increase our own ability to be compassionate and improve our skills at compassion. So let's start by looking at what is compassion and how Drs. Trzeciak and Mazzarelli defined it. So they differentiate compassion from empathy, and it's partly based on studies using functional MRI and finding out that when people are using empathy, they light up a different part of the brain than when they are using compassion, and that empathy tends to light up the feeling areas of the brain, whereas compassion lights up action areas of the brain. So for their definition of compassion in the book, they're talking about our ability to recognize the suffering of others and in response, taking action to help with the suffering of another. And so taking action is specifically what is required in order to fit the criteria they're using for compassionate behavior. So just feeling the suffering of another person doesn't quite meet their definition. It's important that it changes our behavior in a certain way, or we reach out and act in a certain way to help others. So just to clarify that. Next, how our compassion can heal others. And what they found is that compassion from care providers, so this is in healthcare, but it applies to every other area as well. So you don't have to be a healthcare provider in order to utilize compassion, and you don't have to be a patient in order to benefit from compassion. So compassion has a measurable, significant positive effect on patients with all types of suffering from various diseases and injuries. They found abundant information that compassion heals. And they described it as if when we feel compassion for another person who is suffering, we are actually experiencing that person's pain and then transforming it into shared positive feelings, calmness and positive actions. And so we transform the other person's suffering for them, but also for ourselves. So we don't just suffer alongside the other person. When we take action, we're actually able to transform the suffering within us and through our action, and that benefits us and benefits the other patient as well. So it's really fascinating to read and the stories of all of these studies that have been done in the past, and to see just how much work has been done on compassion. But oftentimes it's been done in silos in the past, and no one has really brought all of this information together in one place until doctors Trzeciak and Mazzarelli did their study and brought all of it together in this book. So I next want to look at the point which the authors make in the book, that there is always enough time for compassion. This comes from the argument a lot of medical providers use, that if they were to behave with compassion toward their patients, it would take far longer. Their appointments would last much longer. They wouldn't be able to see as many patients in a day, and it would be extremely inefficient. But what the authors found in their research is that it only takes 40 seconds of a compassionate interaction to make a difference, to bring about change for a patient. And this is rather profound, to think in terms of the actual amount of time that you have to spend in compassionate behaviors in order to have a positive effect on the other person. 40 seconds. That's all it takes. So honestly, there's always enough time for compassion. But the more skilled you become at compassion, the better you will transmit it to other people during the time you have with them. And the more easily you will be able to show compassion to others. It will just flow from you automatically without a lot of effort. But one interesting thing they discovered is that spending time helping other people increases the perception of having plenty of time. They call this time affluence rather than time scarcity, the opposite of time scarcity. The more you're willing to give your time to another person out of compassion, the more your perception of time increases, so that you have the experience of feeling that time is plentiful and abundant, and you don't feel worried that you're going to run out of time. And also, it creates this sense of purpose, an increased sense of self-efficacy, that you are actually using your time really well, that these 40 seconds you're spending being compassionate are very valuable, and you are doing the right thing with your time. And they call this creating a virtuous cycle. The more time that you give in compassion to other people, the more your perception of time increases, the more effective and efficient you become during the time that you spend, and the more positive your own emotions are. So you don't waste any of your energy or thoughts worrying about the fact that this is taking too long. There's not enough time. I shouldn't have started this. I shouldn't have smiled at the patient because, now I'm stuck here and I won't get out of here on time. The more you're able to be in that space of offering genuine compassion, the less you worry about time, and actually the more time bends, in a sense, to allow the space you need to show compassion to the patient. So this is something really interesting to keep in mind, because it's not just medical providers who worry that being compassionate takes too much time. All of us are busy. We all have that issue on our minds that, oh, wow, if I stop and say hello to my neighbor who's been sick lately, will they talk to me for 2 hours and waste all my time for the morning? That, no, showing compassion to someone for just a brief time is so effective that it actually makes all of our time more efficient. So I just want to do away with that notion that we might carry with us, that compassion takes too much time. Compassion actually gives us time. So the authors also talked about some of the compassionate behaviors that we can learn to model in our lives and how we approach other people. And they talked a lot about the idea of faking it until you make it, that if there are times when you don't really feel compassionate, you don't really want to be compassionate toward another person, if you remember compassionate behaviors, that actually helps move you more positively toward compassion, but it actually begins to train your brain, and you will find it easier and easier to get into a compassionate state once you have practiced these behaviors, and then you'll no longer be practicing or faking it down the road. You'll be teaching yourself, first of all, what the behaviors of a compassionate person are, and that really opens things up in your brain for you to actually experience greater compassion. So the first thing they talk about is being intentional, deciding in advance, I want to be compassionate. I want to take a little time out today to be kind to the people that I see and to spend time giving them compassion. So it has to be a choice that you make in your own mind, and you have to have a certain amount of commitment to compassion in order to do it. Once you get skilled at it, it may come automatically to you. You may find it easy to do. One of the hallmarks of compassion is the ability to be present with other people. So that means that you can sit down, sit still, tune in, focus on the other person, and deeply listen to what they're saying to you, that you're not distracted by other thoughts going through your head. You're not distracted by your cell phone or a tablet that you're carrying. You put those aside. You don't look at them. You look only at the person who's speaking to you, and you connect and you tune in to everything that they're saying. So that presence is essential in order to communicate compassion back and forth, to share it. It's also something that we can learn over time. So we need to try it and practice being present with others, and we may find that we can do it for 30 seconds or 60 seconds, and then we fall out of it again. But the more we work on it and we practice focusing in on another person and listening deeply, the better we will get. And so again, it's an idea of fake it until you make it. If at first it doesn't seem easy to do and it doesn't feel natural trying to be present, just keep working at it and have an intention that you want to get better at being fully present. And that will actually, this skill will benefit your entire life, because you'll find much greater meaning, deeper meaning in every experience if you can be fully present to it and not be distracted. So presence is an extremely valuable tool to learn for compassion and for every other thing you'd like to do in life. The next behavior that they observed from compassionate people is making eye contact. And that's something we may have to work on too, because it doesn't always come easily to us to actually look another person directly in the eye. And again, if you can't do it for very long in the beginning, that's okay. It's knowing that eye contact is important and working towards doing it and being able to hold that contact for longer and longer periods of time is important. But even brief eye contact really helps the other person feel seen. And so it helps you as well to feel seen, actually, because when you're making contact with their eyes, they're looking at you as well. So it's a valuable experience. And again, something you can keep building on and practicing over time. They also described leaning toward the person you're talking to rather than away. So having a more open position wherever you're seated or standing, meaning without crossing your arms or crossing your legs, which is kind of a protective position, and then leaning slightly forward to show the person that you're coming toward them in order to connect with them, and you're open to whatever it is they need to share with you. Gentle touch is also really helpful if the other person is comfortable with that, which you may need to ask about or ascertain, at least by their behavior or how they react. But a simple little touch on the arm, or the hand can be very helpful in terms of conveying compassion. So again, check it out and make sure the other person is okay with that behavior of touch. They also talked about the importance of words. What you say can make a huge difference to the other person, and they emphasized simple statements like, "I will be here for you," and creating a feeling of safety and security for the other person. Also a feeling that they're not alone, that you understand from the best of your ability that they're going through a difficult time, and that you intend to be there for them. You intend to do whatever you can to be helpful. They said all of those statements are reassuring. They create a safe space for that person to express whatever their concern is and their fear, and also help the person relax into a state of trust. And so some of the benefits that they have found for patients who are being treated with compassion is that their blood pressure goes down, they have lower pain scores. Compassion improves immune system function, also improves healing. There's so many benefits. You have to read the book in order to get all of these benefits that they've determined in the studies. So there's no question, treating other people with compassion benefits them enormously. But the point that I wanted to make today that I got from the book is that being compassionate also benefits the giver of compassion. So if in our minds we feel that, gosh, I'm too tired today to be compassionate, I'm too stressed out, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough bandwidth, I can't possibly give that to another person, that's actually erroneous, because as we talked before about this virtuous cycle exists, the more compassion we give to others, the more we actually receive in return, and it is energizing and healing for us as well. So I mentioned already that the act of being compassionate helps transform the patient's pain into shared positive feelings. And from that experience, we, the givers of compassion, experience greater calmness, a greater sense of self-worth. It leads to a release of endorphins, which give us a very positive, pleasant feeling. Compassion buffers our own stress by activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which we've talked about a lot before, creates the relaxation response, and it counteracts the fight or flight reaction of the sympathetic nervous system. So it helps us get into the zone and helps us to stay more relaxed. So even when stress is coming at us from all around, when we're in that state of showing compassion and our parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, we're actually buffered and protected from the negative effects of stress. So showing compassion increases our oxytocin levels, and oxytocin, I've talked about before, is the love hormone that helps us feel deeper connections with other people. So that's part of that virtuous cycle. Show more compassion, you get more oxytocin, which makes it easier to show compassion. In studies, they've shown that compassionate people have higher levels of happiness. They have greater resilience to all sorts of stresses in the future, less depression, and an increased quality of life. So the more we show compassion, the more we are actually protected against burnout. And it seems counterintuitive because we've heard the term compassion fatigue, and it sounds like, well, if you give compassion, you'll run out of it and you'll become fatigued. You won't have enough compassion to go around. You have to hoard it and be careful with how you utilize your compassion and where you show it so that you can keep enough of it for yourself. But that's really not true. As I said before, the virtuous cycle is the more compassion you show, the more positive benefits you receive from being compassionate, the more you're able to show compassion. And these authors even went so far as to say, when you're under the most stress, that's when the most compassionate behavior is needed. And you need to have compassion for yourself as well as for other people. So I think it's really beautiful to put that all together and recognize how simple it is. And right now we're living in a time where it seems to me there's a shortage of compassion in the world. People everywhere are withdrawing and pulling in and closing their hearts down and refusing to share compassion with others as if it's this precious resource that we're running out of. There's just not enough of it. But the fact is, the more we act on our own to start showing compassion in the world, we can increase compassion all around us. We will be helping other people to learn better how to be compassionate as well if we can show compassion to them and just give it away freely. So I wanted to share with you, there's a scientific reason for learning greater compassion and improving your skills at compassion and opening your heart to it, because it actually can make you healthier and help the world around you and help other people around you. And the last thing I wanted to share were the studies that have been done on how to learn compassion, because that's been a big debate. Are people just born compassionate or not? Do we just have a skill at compassion that we came here with, and are we able to learn compassion? But from the studies that have been done, we absolutely can learn and increase our ability to be compassionate. So they have found through studies, and some of the most impressive studies I read were done using the Buddhist loving kindness blessing, or metta, which I have taught a number of times, I believe in this podcast, definitely in End of Life University podcast, in almost every talk I do, I talk about the loving kindness blessing and what a difference it has made in my life. So when they had people meditate every day for about 15 minutes a day on the loving kindness blessing, they showed that it actually led to enduring changes in brain function and stable ability to be more compassionate than they had been before. So this loving kindness blessing is so simple. It's such an easy tool to use, and it's one of the ways we have of actually expanding our ability to be compassionate, opening our hearts. And it's been documented in scientific studies. So I think that's great news for all of us, any of us who are thinking, well, I've never been that compassionate. I don't think I'm good at it. I don't think I could ever learn it. It's not true. We can learn, we can grow, we can open our hearts, and we can become more compassionate. So I'm going to tell you the version of the loving kindness blessing that I use. There are many different versions out there. I know some people prefer other wording than the words that I use, but this is what I learned many years ago. So it's the blessing that I say for myself. So it's always the one that I teach because it's been so powerful and so meaningful for me. So I'm going to tell you the 5 statements of this blessing, and then we'll talk a little bit about each one. May I be at peace. May my heart remain open. May I realize the beauty of my own true nature. May I be healed. May I be a source of healing for this world. So it begins with, may I be at peace. And I think that describes the state of mind that is best for us to convey compassion is from a place of calmness, peacefulness, presence, stillness. And so asking, first of all, to help me get into this state of peace, help me quiet down now, help me slow down all those intrusive thoughts that are going through my head. Help me slow down my own heart rate and lower my blood pressure a little bit. Take some deep breaths. Feel truly peaceful and calm within, because that's how you begin to create this safe container for yourself and also for the other person that you would like to extend compassion to. The second statement is, may my heart remain open. And so here again, we're talking about open-hearted compassion, that we need to be in a giving state, willing to have love and compassion emanate from us, and have our hearts open and not closed down. So in this part of the blessing, we're really asking, as we enter into this peaceful state, that our hearts begin to open as well, so that we can share maximum love and compassion with other people. The third statement is, may I realize the beauty of my own true nature. For me, this means, may I recognize my higher consciousness, my higher self, my soul, my better nature, if you want to say it that way. And may I activate that part of me. That's the part of me that's capable of extending pure love, capable of rising above my shadow, all my woundedness, all my negativity, and actually transmitting pure love to others. So may I realize and remember, oh yes, I have this higher self. I have this divine self within me that's capable of transmitting love to other people. May I activate that right now, so that in my peaceful, calm state with my open heart, I can just radiate love and compassion out to other people. The fourth statement is, may I be healed. Right there, we're looking at the benefits of compassion, is that may this experience I have of sharing compassion be healing for me as well as for other people. But it acknowledges that before I can heal anyone else, I need to heal myself. So I need to ask for healing for whatever it is within me that is an obstacle in me to showing pure love and compassion to others. So I ask for healing before the fifth statement, may I be a source of healing for this world, because ultimately that is what I would like to be able to do. I want to be able to bring healing to the world. But that's the very last thing I ask for in the blessing, because first I have to learn how to be peaceful. I have to learn how to open my heart. I have to recognize my higher divine self and activate it within me. I have to be healed myself so that I'm a more pure vessel for carrying this love and compassion. And then finally, I can serve as a source of healing for others in the world. I can share my compassion. I can help others be healed. So those are the 5 statements of the loving kindness blessing as I use it. I find it to be beautiful, profound. It's awe-inspiring to me every single time I say those statements. And I use it every day, basically. I say it to myself all the time. So it's something I would encourage you to memorize if you can. Go back and write down the 5 statements. Or you can look one up online, and that will have different statements to it, but find whatever resonates with you that makes the most sense to you. Memorize it so it's a tool you always have at hand. And that's something you can use on a daily basis to train yourself to become more compassionate. And I hope that you'll be inspired by this idea that the more you develop and grow your ability to be compassionate, the healthier you will become. And the more you can utilize your skill to help other people around you, because I guarantee you the world desperately needs this right now. The whole world needs more compassion. And each one of us can just start wherever we are, in our own homes, in our own hearts, growing our ability to be compassionate, and then reaching out to share that with other people. So I hope you feel inspired to do that. Until next week when we're together again, just remember that we're here for love. That's the whole reason we're here on this planet in the first place, is just to learn how to love and how to share compassion. So what better thing could you devote yourself to? So face your fear, be ready for whatever life brings your way, and love each and every moment of your precious life. Bye-bye.